Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're going to be talking about countries and their most populated cities, and let's get right into it. So, yellow lines will represent heavily used roads as well as places that are, heavily populated. So, one of the most populated places in the world, Lagos, Nigeria, is really, really crowded. And at first glance, just looking at all of these hospitals, technology colleges, and universities, they seem like they're very advanced, but in reality, many countries in Africa aren't as advanced as, well, Google Maps would make it look. But that's besides what we're going to be talking about today. A big question is why so many people live in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, from the start of humanity, most people have lived in areas like Ethiopia and South Sudan before moving into areas in the Eastern Hemisphere, but some took a turn to countries like Nigeria, Chad, Niger, Benin, and then loads of others, really. But one place in the world that had, for thousands of years, been heavily populated is Nigeria, just because of its wildlife, the amount of food it has, how fertile its land is, and it's just great living areas. Frankly, it's just a good place to live. Despite what a lot of people think, it's really not that bad. But recently, their healthcare and all kinds of living conditions have skyrocketed in growth and quality, meaning that more and more lives are being saved and more lives are being conserved, meaning more and more lives are happening. And that's just how the population cycle works. But in particular, a lot of people thousands of years ago settled in Lagos, mostly because of its fertile land on the sides of it, the amazing lagoons, and the Gulf of Guinea, and overall, they have good areas for fishing. This was one of the places where fishing first started, and it's basically happened before writing as well, which is very long ago. But Lagos, Nigeria, for a very long time has had time to skyrocket in population, and it will only ever grow larger. We do not, nobody sees it going down anytime soon unless something terrible happens with Nigeria's economy, and that will basically be if they get a bad leader or not, considering leaders really change how a country develops and therefore how it goes. But in particular, Lagos, Nigeria recently, which is actually, I'm pretty sure it's the capital. No, it's not. Abuja is the capital, but Lagos, we already went over it. So, another place that we're going to go over in the world, which is heavily underrated in terms of population, is Egypt's capital, Cairo. By many in Africa, it's considered a super city, or a crazy advanced city for Africa, considering how much technology and advancements there is all over the streets, and just so much. But in particular, New Cairo City has been a project by the Egyptians for 80 years now. It's been heavily worked on, and in fact, is very advanced. Loads of schools, colleges, museums, nurseries, and all kinds of advanced stuff are being built in the Cairo city, and soon it will overtake Cairo in terms of population and be its new capital. But those are only very hard to tell projections, and the reason being is because, no one lives in the Cairo city, even though it may look like it by how much effort they put in. Only 1/10 of the population that Cairo would have is in Cairo city, meaning that the new Cairo city does not actually have nearly as much as Cairo. However, whenever it's finished, many are planning to flock from Cairo to New Cairo City, which will drastically change how the government will see Cairo, and will probably put New Cairo City as, their capital, and it will heavily grow in progression very soon. But another very populated place in the world is London. For a very long time now, people have been wondering how people have gotten to the British Isles, which is Ireland, the Isle of Man, Northern Ireland, United Kingdom, all of that jazz. But even I don't really understand, but many believe, and it's probably a fact as well, that these pieces were once connected in one land, which is how thousands of years ago people would be able to move into the United Kingdom. Now you have to remember at this time there was no advancements happening any time at that time. And so basically what was happening here was people were most likely flocking through a land bridge that was built between that was made by nature between France and the UK, but has since gone apart because tectonic plates if you study like geography. But London overall is a very populated city, one of the most populated cities in the world, and also the most populated city that is considered European. I would actually not very consider, this may sound weird, but I don't really consider the British Isles European at all, since they technically are not on the European continent, kind of like how people refer to Iceland as European and nobody agrees with that. It's kind of me with the UK, because it's not connected to the continent. It was, but it isn't anymore. But that doesn't really matter, considering London is such an advanced place, and it also is the place of the palace of the royalty. It's really just a wonderful place for everything, and there's been a lot of memes and trolls on the internet happening there in like 2016. But and that's London for you. We have a few more to go here, but now we have Shanghai, China, which is probably the most advanced city we're going to get on this list. Not only does it have the fastest train in the world, and will be the fastest train for a projected 17 years, which is even faster than a bullet train, a maglev train, which is actually powered by magnets. I'm not going to get all sciencey on you, but yeah, it's very quick, and it runs through Shanghai, and it goes very far up, all the way to Russia, and there's even a track that goes over to North Korea. But just in general, Shanghai is a super advanced place with many Chinese districts and many, many people who live there. Over 10 million people live there. Surprisingly, that's over the population of New Zealand, Greece, or Portugal, and those are some decently sized places. Don't get me wrong, they are pretty small for where they are, but they are decently sized if you're in the great scheme of things. Where you live is like basically a speck on this map. Just imagine how big these countries are. They look small on the map, but they really aren't, and Shanghai is just a huge population. Now, we're going to be going over New York now, which has actually, for a long time, it has never been as populated ever before. Right now, it's skyrocketing in population. Originally, Philadelphia was actually the place where the United States was founded, and overall, man, it was the capital city of the U.S. for a very long time, before Washington, D.C. became the capital, of course. In fact, did you know Washington, D.C. is kind of considered its own state in the area, and it also only has 600,000 people living in it? That's literally less than a lot of cities in the U.S., and Washington's the freaking capital, so that's kind of weird for a country. But Philadelphia was soon replaced very soon by New York as the most populated city in the U.S., mainly because New York is way more advanced. It has a very cool national monument, it's very cozy, and it's also in a location that is interesting to a lot of people, especially considering a lot of people think New York is in like the Buffalo area or whatever, but it's actually not even in basically it's not in the state of New York. It's kind of in New Jersey, but it's also kind of in New York. Long Island's a part of New York. New York is kind of a part of Long Island, if you really want to say that. But, yeah, and it's overall, not a lot of people know this. A lot of people think it's other places, like Las Vegas, Los Angeles, or other places like Dallas or Seattle. but it's actually New York that is the most populated place in the U.S. by over 10 million people. That's the population of Portugal, of an amount higher. But our final place on our list is the place that is the most populated city in the world, as well as the most populated. It's also the most populated. It's also the most populated place in populated capital. It's the most populated capital in the world. I do not have an explanation for this like the other ones. However, it's extremely advanced. From what I heard so far, the food is amazing. And overall, it's extremely advanced. I mean, look how much living area and stuff there is in this place. Tokyo is massive. I mean, it's this entire area. People think it's just a city. No, it's a metro zone. It's absolutely gigantic. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the history lesson on this video. If you stuck around to the end, I hope you enjoyed this video. And, well, you kind of deserve a medal because I'm kind of boring. But have a nice day.